For those who don't know, I am an inspiring filmmaker. I make my own movies for fun, but also from this deep desire within to just create. And a lot of films start out as short films and then eventually become feature films. And I kind of love to see it when that happens. It's happened with one of my favorite films of all time, Napoleon Dynamite. It started out as a small black and white short film made deep in the Midwest called Palooka, and then became like the highest, or one of the highest grossing films of like 2004, which is pretty incredible. Palooka was made for only $500 back in the day, and Napoleon Dynamite was made for $400,000. And Napoleon Dynamite in 2004 made $46 million. Seeing a little short film come all that way is, to be honest, a little inspiring. Sometimes making a really highly produced short is the best way to turn your dream into a full feature-length production. Recently, there was a film that came out this year called Night Swim. Now, I saw the trailer, and like many other people, I thought it like ass. I thought, oh, they just ripped off this other short film that I really liked. A couple of filmmakers trying to make a cheap buck by ripping off a cool idea by other filmmakers that don't have the means to make their film right now. But no, they didn't actually. After doing some research, I found out that Night Swim 2024 is based off of another short film of the same name made 10 years earlier in 2014 by the same filmmakers. But in 2023, there was a different short film called Deep End that had a pretty similar premise, and I hadn't seen Night Swim 2014 at the time, so I assumed that Night Swim, the 2024 movie, was ripping off the 2023 short film. But I didn't know that 2024's Night Swim is actually based off of 2014's Night Swim. Who'd have figured? So after sitting down and actually watching Night Swim 2014, I thought it was pretty good. I watched it back to back with its cousin, the Deep End short film from 2023, and I'm going to be spending time comparing the two because I think it's fun. One of the reasons I think it's kind of fun is that there was a quote I heard a long time ago, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here because I can't find the original quote, but so many stories have already been told, but nobody's seen that story told your way. And that's kind of what I like about these two short films. They're pretty similar in premise. Both deal with, a kid going into a pool and swimming around and finding something creepy in the water, but both tackle that idea from very different angles, and I think it's interesting to explore that. So let's go. Now, Night Swim, as the title suggests, takes place at night, which is very different from the other short film, which takes place during the daytime. And of course, nighttime is the, natural setting for horror. It's dark, you can't see anything, it gets scary. Now, the cinematography in Night Swim is pretty good. I particularly like the shot of the pool because it feels like this little tiny square of light in a void of nothingness. And that kind of makes sense for when, spoilers, she gets kind of sucked into it at the end and disappears. Now, the scare is decent. It's a decent scare factor. You see this mysterious, shadowy figure kind of approach the edge of the pool, and both short films play with this idea of you're under the water and everything's kind of murky and wavy and you can't really make out what's going on. It plays with that disorienting feeling of going into a pool and not having the full range of your sight the way you normally do on land. But I think Night Swim manages to ground you actually more into that feeling. They play with it differently in Deep End, but in this one, it feels like you're in the pool with the person. The underwater cinematography is pretty cool. The composition is very nice, and I kind of like that the pool itself is very well lit. You can see everything underneath, and it's very pleasing to the eye. Where I think Night Swim falters a bit is in how it doles out its information, particularly how it handles the reveal. In both films, we deal with a unknown figure that, for some unknown reason, is terrorizing our protagonist. But in Night Swim, the creature moves closer to the edge of the pool, and we see the creature's face, and it looks like a dead version of the woman who's in the pool. This is pretty creepy, but in my humble opinion, I feel like Deep End does this better, because while it is creepy having that shadowy figure there, once we figure out what it is, it becomes a little less scary. Yes, more questions are brought to the surface when we see what the creature is, but at least knowing a little bit about it helps us understand it more, thus making it a little less scary. And then the short film abruptly ends after that. And now we get to talk about Deep End. Deep End is about 5 minutes long, and it takes place during the summer and during the daytime. Very different from Night Swim, but cultivates a very similar vibe. Both films kind of deal with the aspect of being alone, but Night Swim manages to make you feel more tense in that isolation, whereas Deep End, you don't really think about the character as being alone until he's not alone. It creates this more inviting environment before it comes crashing down and becomes creepier, therefore drawing you in. And what really drew me in about Deep End is the camera work is much more involved. I love the slow and ominous zooms in on the environment around them. It really brings that sense of dread in, and the film really capitalizes on it in that first shot when you see him jump into the pool. Like I said, both films deal with the distorting feeling of, being underwater and things looking different, but whereas Night Swim manages to create a pretty creepy atmosphere of keeping a guessing game going of what's at the top of the pool, Deep End plunges you into an entirely different world and shocks the hell out of you the first time you see it. Night Swim draws you in and makes you ask questions, and Deep End quite literally throws you into the deep end. I think it's a true testament to how scary your story can be if it's scary in the daytime, because, being alone in a dark room is scary enough as it is, so you can make almost anything scary at night, but making something scary in the day takes a lot of talent, and I admire the Deep End team for what they pulled off there. I love how it feels like a different world, the very green and murky combined with the light and sunny. And then there's the creature. Now, I really fuck with the creature. He is so cool in Deep End because we get to learn a lot about him through this short film. The creature in Deep End, it's shrouded in mystery. You see it from very far away, and you're not really quite sure you've seen what you've seen until it moves, which, when any film does that, I find it terrifying. I love when films do that. In Night Swim, the creature is presented as being here. We don't know really what it is or why it's here, and then we find out what it is, kind of, and then the film ends. With Deep End, with a 5-minute runtime, which isn't that different from the 3-minute runtime of Night Swim, I feel like Deep End manages to do a lot more. You get to find out who this protagonist is as a character, vaguely, through the actions that he takes in the story. Deep End also manages to keep its story going by inventing a reason for the protagonist to go back to the pool. It makes it feel much more real because the character tries to get out of the pool as fast as possible, which is what anyone would do, but manages to still be entertaining by inventing a reason for the character to stick around and keep the story and entertainment going. And when we see the deep end creature get out of the pool, we get an answer, but get even more questions, but it's still mysterious to us, unlike in Night Swim, where it feels like an answer to a question we didn't ask. In Night Swim, we're in one setting. It feels like one small scene, whereas Deep End feels like an entire story in a very, very small size. In Deep End, through the character's actions, we can kind of infer why the creature is after him. He's sneaking into somebody's pool, and maybe this is the creature who guards it. It might be a portal to a different world, and he guards it. We don't really know, but it's an answer that we get with more questions on top of it. We find out about the creature, but we still know nothing about it. Whereas in Night Swim, we find out something about the creature, and we're like, oh, that's it. Oh, okay, it's just her, but dead, and she's replacing her? Maybe? There's not really as many conclusions to draw to in Night Swim, but it feels like in Deep End the possibilities are more open, making it much more engaging for the mind, especially on rewatches and showing it to other people. Now, I do like Night Swim's use of music. The sound design is very good as well. We have like the crickets in the background, and we have the music coming from a speaker that sounds very far away, combined with like the water sloshing noises. And it really makes you feel grounded in the short, where you're getting that feeling of being alone on a late summer night, having a nice swim in the pool. Like, that's the feeling it captures, and I think it does so very well. Deep End, on the other hand, feels more voyeuristic. It feels like you're watching a bad thing happen to somebody. It doesn't really ground you in it as much, but it is more fantastical, and, in my opinion, a tiny bit more entertaining to watch. Both, I think, are pretty good short films, although I think I would have to give the edge to the Deep End. I'm a sucker for some good color and cinematography, and that's another thing. Deep End is much more colorful and prettier to look at. It is really, really interesting how you can essentially tell the same story, but have them be so different. And that's what I love about filmmaking in general. You can make pretty much anything. It's just all about how you approach it and execute it. Take all of these ideas and you mush them together, and what becomes interesting is your perspective on it. And as an aspiring filmmaker myself, I really like that idea. So now I will take a moment to shamelessly plug my own short film that I've worked on, Emergency Broadcast. Whenever I've brought it up to people, I tell them it's kind of like Poltergeist meets Twilight Zone. We're hoping to get it done real soon into the festival circuit, but I'm talking a little bit about it here to drum up some interest. So if anyone seems interested in this project, leave a like, and maybe we'll make a trailer for it soon.
This is the emergency broadcast system.
I'm not making anything up.
Nobody in the office heard anything about an earthquake.
I said I'm not making it up.
The following message is being transmitted in your best interest. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill.